Welcome to the C-Suite Leadership Journey. I am so excited to be here because I have an awesome and incredible guest speaker today. And before I introduce her to you guys, basically what I wanted to say is that we are a corporation where we help leaders build a can-do culture where they can improve and maximize the influence and also improve the team performance. So we are actually equipping all leaders all over the world, not just here in the United States, but also different languages. So we are also excited to be here. And just to be really excited because I have an awesome and incredible human being waiting on the back of the room. And today I wanted to introduce you to Michelle Griffin. Let's welcome to Michelle.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here, Michelle, finally. I'm so excited. So before I start, asking you questions about the journey that you have been having for the few years, can you just please introduce yourself to the audience that is watching right now?
Yes, definitely. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to kind of share my knowledge and my journey with everybody. My background pretty much is about 10 to 12 years in HR. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology, and I will finish my PhD in industrial organizational psychology in about 6 months. So I've been on that, been working my PhD for about 5 years now. I started an HR firm about 3 years ago. I initially was an independent contractor, and I did that in the second year of my PhD with the intent of just kind of working with small businesses who needed support in HR while I was working on my PhD. But I was only a solopreneur for about 3 months before I had more work than I could handle. So I hired 2 employees, and at that time I had about 8 clients. And that's the 3 of us kind of got through COVID and built the business in the middle of that, and then grew the business to kind of where it is now, pretty steady over the years. So now I have about 20 employees, approximately 50 clients, and we did 1.2 million in revenue last year as our 3rd year in business.
Wow, congratulations. You see that it's possible, my friends. It is possible. So most of my the people that I come here to speak, I always ask this question: what was the motivation behind to starting that incredible organization to actually serve the community, and not just here in the Tampa Bay area, but globally? What inspired you? What was the aha moment that you had?
I didn't mean to start a business, so I didn't necessarily have an aha moment. I meant to kind of take the knowledge that I had as an HR executive, and I realized a lot of small to mid-sized businesses would just not handle their HR very well. They would usually keep it with the CFO or a COO or maybe an office manager, or someone that didn't have any experience in HR was thrown at that. So my initial intent was to work with those types of people and those businesses to just share my expertise and kind of coach and mentor whoever was given HR to be able to bring that knowledge to just that audience. And my very first client pretty much just said, why don't you just run my HR? And I did not expect to do that. But I got an internal email address and functioned inside the company as their HR representative for it was a small company, about 12 people, and helped them grow to about 20 people that first year. So they were my client for about 1.5 years or so. They were in a PEO. And then I continued to just gain traction and word of mouth. And we continued to help companies almost like a partnership and function as their HR instead of consulting or coaching. And so I let the business owners dictate what they needed and what they wanted, and ended up hiring other people that could fit those needs. And eventually it just kind of took on a natural life of its own. I ended up with Two missions, an external mission and an internal mission. So once it was very clear that the company was going to be a company, and we ended up hiring by year 2, where that's when we're talking 5 to 10 employees during that second year of growth. I wanted an internal mission to support HR professionals. As an HR professional, I definitely knew what it was like to not be valued by a company or feel that the executive team understands what HR does. It's very easy to feel undervalued and overworked and underpaid as an HR professional. And I didn't want that for my own employees. I wanted to give them a safe space to be and learn HR. It's also really hard to break into the HR industry if you want to do it on purpose. Most people fall into it. So it definitely takes knowing people. It's one of those industries that you have to have experience in order to even get started. So there's that vicious cycle of how do you get experience if no one will give you a chance. So I wanted to be able to bring that to the table for internally for my employees and give them a chance to grow and learn and work in different industries and have an opportunity for growth. It's also one of those, I would say almost dead end jobs because you have a really hard time growing in your own career path. If you're in, I would say even a large company, it's even harder because you get specialized or departmentalized within HR. You can be a specialist or generalist or, just even an admin, and you really don't have an upward momentum unless someone, either the company keeps growing and a position becomes available, or you have to wait for someone to leave the company and then, get promoted. So that's also been really tough. And we can bring, because we have so many clients and such a diverse work space that we work in, because we are not industry specific and we are across the continental US and internationally, most of my employees can get pulled into many different directions. And if they end up in something they don't like, they can speak up and we can move them off the project. And, if they're, and vice versa, if there's industries they want to try, then we can move them around and give them opportunities that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And externally, it was about being able to bring HR to small to mid-sized businesses to help them out, especially during COVID, especially when there was benefits that they didn't know how to manage. They needed to manage them, especially during COVID, or there was the different loans that were being out. The PPP loans were starting to get complicated and had to be managed through payroll. So we wanted to be able to bring those services, and small to mid-sized businesses didn't really have a way to manage that. So we were kind of a neat plug and play when it came to a unique timing in the industry too.
Awesome. Wow. You guys heard all this story. Yeah, that is a big mission that you have. And I am glad that I can see your passion and your heart into that. So probably most of the audience that are watching, they probably are starting a business. They're probably thinking about having a business, or they probably have been in business for a long time. So what kind or type of mindset do you feel like it actually worked for you to be successful and be as successful as you are right now?
I had a lot to learn. I didn't know how to run a business. I only knew my area of expertise, which was HR, and the behind the scenes that comes with that. So the compliance, the laws that come with that. I partnered myself with a lot of mentors, and I was quite open to a lot of people. I would say like really steering the direction of how to do sales, how to do accounting. And I didn't try to do it all myself. I have seen business owners that they try to do it all themselves, and it doesn't work. You have to know your weaknesses. You have to know the strengths of other people. You have to know you have to be able to admit when you need help. You have to be able to lean on other people. I definitely, I was warned that moving from being someone that did the work myself. So even when we were smaller and I was like starting the company, I was the HR professional with clients, and I had to move away from that. And I also was the managers of the employees, and I had to move away from that. And now I'm the only kind of real position I have left is building sales and business development. And I also need to move away from that. So I have to be able to take on different roles and responsibilities and be able to delegate that and oversee it. But I also have to be able to know what got me where I am is not going to get me to the next phase of the business. And every time you double a business, you have to change structure, you have to change resources and processes and procedures and automation. And it obviously takes spending money to make money, and to do that strategically took a lot of business partners to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you believe that any leader needs to be focused in the growth plan, or have like a something in plan, like, hey, I need to grow in this, or you just go as you go? Or
Yeah, I mean, I did mine really quickly, which was not normal. Most of the time it does take years. And so you have a lot of time to prepare for that, or kind of see it coming, or even plan and do it intentionally. So my first year I did about 175,000 revenue. My second year was 550. And then this past year, my third year was the 1.2. So I doubled year over year, if not a little more than double. So that kind of growth is, for me, I kind of had to try to be as proactive as possible with the intent of the growth for that. But it was, I would say, right place, right time, and not being too scared of it. I've definitely seen, there was the whole discussion that I had with a lot of people, kind of cart before the horse kind of situation. When do we hire people versus how many clients we have and the workload that we have? And, being able to perform the work that's needed with the talent that we have, versus do we go get more clients and hire those people? So we don't want to pay people we can't afford. We don't want to, take on clients that we can't support. So a lot of it was a balancing act. Some clients did get hurt. Some people did get hurt. I mean, it was, unfortunately, there were some mistakes made, but it was a lesson learned in several situations. But it was, the idea was to keep going and keep moving forward, and being able to, take on clients that we can, hire the right people, things like that. I would say everyone that I have works remote. So being able to find talent that can work remote, it was easy during COVID, during the lockdowns, because everyone was forced to work remote. It wasn't an environment people were used to. And now it's a choice, and people can choose to work remotely, but it's still not always the best environment for them. And so being able to continue to build the business as a remote business is actually become a little difficult now that people really have to understand that it's they have to be able to be self-motivating in an environment where they're alone, and everything that they do is virtual. And so I think we'll continue to see how that continues to move in a new era of technology, where that makes things cheaper, easier, and faster to be able to work from anywhere. It grew the company really fast, but then I think it's going to continue to be an advantage, but possibly a disadvantage that we're seeing.
Yeah, so I have two questions for you, Michelle. So the first one, how do you actually, because one of the questions that I have, one of the members here in this group, is that they said, they asked me, Candy, how I can manage virtual teams, how I can be successful with them. And the other question is, what has been the biggest and the most crazy challenge that you have, that you overcome, and now you're like, I'm a winner and about us?
So managing virtual teams, I'll answer that one. During COVID, I got asked that a lot, and because a lot of it came down to, mental health, keeping people motivated, keeping people connected. But that's also what my PhD research is on. I'm specifically looking at something called information communication technology, and how that plays a part in sharing vital knowledge across international borders between a multinational company. My specific case study was a company that's in Macedonia and Serbia. But what I have learned from that research, as well as my own personal experiences and working with my team and things like that is nothing really replaces in-person communication. Some things are better shared in person. Relationships are better built in person. So there really isn't a way to ever get away from it, I don't think. I think businesses can thrive virtually. Some of my best employees I've never met in person. They literally work across the country. But I would say staying connected and having, I would say, continued communication, knowing their needs, being supportive of that. And, working with people that have a desire to work virtually. It works well for their lifestyle. It works well for their choice of, I would say, the way that they decide to work. And I think it's going to come down to almost like a new knowledge base, how we've learned different learning styles, how people, if they're auditory, visual, or kinesthetic learners, I feel like we're going to end up knowing if someone is, if they're, I don't know if I want to say it's, just extrovert or introvert kind of thing. But I definitely think that people, if they're outgoing in their personal life and they're okay to work at their computer, at their station, at their desk, and they can kind of decide how that works for them. But I think we'll end up learning a lot more about virtual teams as we end up just embracing new and different technology. Virtual reality is, and the metaverse is already being explored. I was really surprised, even in Macedonia, they are already using virtual reality in the classrooms. So yeah, I think we're going to end up seeing, people trying to make a more, I would say, different kind of connection. So if you end up just putting on goggles and then you can, literally see an entire environment around you. But a lot of people in my research, they want body language. They want to see more than just your shoulders and your head, your hand gestures, your body language is going to always be really important. Visual communication is really important versus the phone or an email. Tone of voice, you can't really convey that very well in emails. That's very apparent. So virtual teams, we usually, even in my own company, require people to turn on their cameras. We make sure, to let people know it's no different than showing up to work. So kind of being camera ready is no different than getting ready for work. So things like that, where it's like, if you turn on your camera, then at least you have some of those additional facial expressions and you can read people at least a little better than if you were just communicating by email or even by phone. And then the other question of like, I've made it, I don't think I have had that yet. I don't know. I haven't set goals for that to say this is my milestone. People have asked, how big do I want the company to get? What kind of goals do I have for it? And I will let it get as big as it is going to get. We do have, my goal initially was to go international because that is my passion. That's obviously why I'm doing my PhD internationally. I think we're going to have the opportunity to work more with people without having to travel. So obviously that makes it easier, cheaper, faster, and more economical for businesses to go multinational. So right now I actually have 3 clients that are based in Europe and have subsidiaries or an expanding of their companies in the States. And so we're helping them manage their subsidiaries here in the States. So we're still kind of stateside in what we do, but we're very aware of they're not aware of the laws, and we know that they don't know our laws. So we also have one in Canada as well. So they've expanded to several states. And so every time they go into a new state, they're very surprised to learn how different our states can be. So yeah, I would love to see more international work. Right now we're pretty much in almost every industry. So that's also really exciting. So I would love to just continue to see it get bigger and be able to, I would like an internship program. I don't have one yet. So once I can get a little more stable and we have project-based work that we know is easy to assign to internships and we can do that, then that's probably another thing I want to create. to help students and people interested in the HR field get that experience and break
Yeah.
into the field.
That would be an excellent idea. Since you're part of the University of Tampa,
Mhm.
then you can help them. Wow, that would be incredible. Mhm. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I have a question here. Somebody just sent it to me and they like say, Candy, can you ask Michelle, what do you do when you don't have any clients?
So the only time I had that was when I started. So ever since then, I've always had clients. So I initially decided I was actually really fortunate in my career. I had spoken at the time I was a director of HR. I spoke with the CEO of the company and I had a 3-month exit strategy. And so I continued to retain my salary as a director of HR for that entire 3 months. I was allowed to work remote. I was allowed to come and go and start networking and having client meetings and, going to lunch meetings and coffee meetings while I was still employed. And that allowed me to launch my career as initially, as I mentioned, as kind of the solopreneur, but my husband's in IT, so he's also been in the tech industry for a long time, and so he helped me set up a website, and so that was kind of an easier spin up that I think can be a cost for some companies. And I had really good mentors that helped me set up the LLC for really an inexpensive cost. I have seen it also cost more, so I ended up only having to pay a law firm a few $100s. But I have talked to companies that started off with a few $1,000s. So I didn't realize how grateful I was for a lot of those opportunities. But for me, I started going through my entire network on LinkedIn. Most of my clients I have found on LinkedIn or by connecting through people on LinkedIn, using that as a way to announce what I've been doing, what I do in the community, going to HR events, going to other areas where I knew that CEOs would be connecting. So I was grateful to be able to join ACG, which stands for Association for Corporate Growth. There's usually one in almost every city. They're international. That's a very big network to join. And that one was also rather inexpensive when it comes to the cost of a lot of networking options. And I also got back involved with the university I'm on the board of fellows for the University of Tampa. So a lot of the trustees and the sponsors for the university are all business owners. So I started networking very strategically, both just virtually, which was really easy at the time because of COVID. So I would reach out to people on LinkedIn, just asking them to connect with me. I asked a lot of questions of speakers at the events for conferences. And so I would go to a conference and schedule lunch or coffees with pretty much anyone who would talk to me. Rather than go to the sessions and sit down, I was speaking with all the speakers or catching up with them afterwards. And I did get quite a bit of clients doing that. I learned that from my husband, who's, like I said, in IT, but he's also background as sales. I am not naturally an extrovert. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know to do that. I think my first time going to a conference, he told me to go get 5 business cards. And then after that, I had to have more than 5 meetings a day. So I had to work my way up into talking to that many people, and really driving myself. But to be honest, like one of my very first clients was with one of the speakers at HR Tampa, and her and I wrote an RFP together and won a company. And I've actually gotten a lot of revenue from that. And we've actually had that client for 3 years now, and they kind of come and go, and we've had them for a while together. And that was my 3rd or 4th client that I did after just meeting people like that. So it just takes a lot of work. When I'm trying to drive new business, I usually have 4 to 5 networking calls a day. And I usually have about 10 opportunities in the pipeline at any given moment. I usually close 2 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many I start with. I don't know how much networking that actually takes to get there, but the funnel does get, the longer we've been in business, the easier it is to close business. Industries I've personally been in or that my team members have been in are easier to close. So in the tech world, I was the head of HR at ConnectWise. And so MSPs that use the ConnectWise software, it's a pretty famous like software. So it's really easy to close business because of that connection. Being in construction, I went from there, I went to residential construction. So a lot of developments and that kind of thing, like we were able to get into those businesses. From there, we've had, restaurants and manufacturing, I would say like hospitality, healthcare. From there, we started expanding.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
I try not to say no, which can be hard if we're not a good fit. So I do let them make that decision. So I don't try to be a pushy salesperson. I didn't create a product and then try to sell a product. I don't say we do that. This is how we work with you. We do this audit and we do these things and then we present you with solutions or whatever. That's never been done. We do have audits. We can do audits, but we don't force anyone to start there. I usually talk to the C-suite, find out what keeps them up at night and say, we'll start there. We'll see if that's a fit. We'll start with a handbook or, things like that. But I needed reoccurring revenue. And that doesn't work on project basis. So we have done project basis, but that's not the bread and butter. The bread and butter is becoming an HR partner and working with the business over long periods of time. A lot of times we have our clients we've only been in business for 3 years, but we've had clients for, a year and a half, 2 years, I think is pretty much our average kind of length. But once they're with us, it's usually for quite a while.
Yeah, so hopefully, Sonia, the answer that Michelle just gave you some ideas on how to obtain clients. So
but yeah, once I had clients, I've kept clients and I've always driven more clients. The other thing is when I was talking with people that are consultants, they kind of have a choice. It's really hard to be the practitioner and drive new business and business development at the same time. And that is why I had to step away from being the practitioner, because I can't drive business development and do the work at the same time. It is not sustainable. So if you are a person that is a practitioner and need to drive your own business development, some people that I've talked to say that they will keep like a Friday afternoon open or a specific time of the month where if they're scheduling meetings, then they will put them on those meetings and try to make sure that they have a pipeline or a demand that they can continue. So if they know something is coming to an end, typically for me, it takes, and most people I've talked to, it takes about 3 months to build up the pipeline before I start to see a lot of new business close. So if I know we're going to need new business, then I start marketing for that 2 to 3 months in advance. So I've talked to people that'll maybe have work for 6 months. And then the 6 months comes to an end, and then it takes them a few months to find the work again. And then they keep doing this cycle of having work and not having work. But in order to grow the business and realize that I wanted a business, that's when I decided to continue with the business development and hire employees and make sure that they had jobs and that we were signing on new clients on a regular basis. So once we started that, it continued with that model.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important point, because that's something that I was talking with somebody last week, and this person actually was asking me, okay, Candy, so how do I obtain this? Because I feel a burnout, I feel overwhelmed, because they do them both. And I told her, I said, listen, the best way is to focus what your strengths are, what is your most expertise are, and then you just focus on that and let somebody else and hire somebody else, hire help, because that's what most of the small business, when they don't ask for help and they don't ask for that particular, because they're afraid to pay $50K a year for somebody to help them, or a virtual assistant to help them with social media. They don't want to let go of that, those little things that you have to do all the time. And that's something that I have to go through. And right now I have 4 virtual assistants. I have a co-host that helps me with training, coaches, all those little things that actually relieve, but I still closing sales. That's the thing that I always do. They have to talk to me, nobody else. But yeah, that's really a good strategy. So just remember, just to recap, just a little bit, just make sure you network, use your best, platform that is going to be serving you. And as a leader, you may encounter, like Michelle said, you may encounter some challenges, maybe not, maybe small little things that you have to bump in it, but I just be like open-minded and don't be so frustrated, like, because I feel like something that I'm learning for you today, Michelle, is that you don't have those goals, like, if I don't meet it, I'm going to be stressed. So that's why you just let it be, let it grow. And that's how business comes, because you don't worry about it.
Yeah, like last year, my goal, so I did a lot of marketing in year 2, and that's where the growth from year 3 happened. I actually didn't hire a lot of new employees last year. Most of the people came from hiring in the second year, and I had the same amount of clients. It wasn't the same clients, but I had the same amount of clients in January of 2021 that I had in January of 2022. And so interestingly enough, and the same thing now. So like January of last year, I had like actively like on invoicing 33 clients. And right now it's the same thing. I think I literally have like 35 clients on invoicing that we've actually have to invoice, versus like we have some that we call going dormant. So I don't have a retainer and I don't have a minimum. So we do write agreements for a year. And if they're small and we do our job really well, then our purpose is to work ourselves out of a job and help these companies stand on their own and then call us when they need us. So we'll have companies that won't need us for 3 or 4 months and then show back up, or we have to write a new agreement because it's expired. So things like that will happen. So it's not always the same clients, but it's the same amount for the same head count that I have right now. But what we've found is we're getting more work out of the clients that we have. And I started hiring people that could work full time. I had a lot of part-timers for a while. So even though the number of headcount is approximately the same, I have more work hours out of those people. And so being service oriented, one of the things I wanted to do and take the time last year was to kind of build the house internally, develop a leadership team, develop a hierarchy, make sure that we could support the staff, we could onboard people correctly, we could train them. We had, infrastructure that was sustainable with, Microsoft Office and secured cloud sharing of, internal client documents and client passports. We started using a company called Password Boss. So we, as a company, can secure all of our client passwords, and then we assign an encryption to our employees. And so they never actually see what the password is to a client's, let's say their HRIS system or something like that. We as a company take control of that data and then securely make sure that we can share it, but our end users will never know what the actual passwords are. So we started taking cybersecurity very seriously. Obviously, we started making sure we had really good insurance, liability insurance, E&O insurance, that kind of thing. We'd had that obviously from the very beginning. I had to have it to win the RFP, but so that was actually my first time having to get insurance, was so that I could win that thing and prove it. But so I lucked out. Someone early on in the first 3 months told me to go get insurance. But from then on, it was making sure we had enough and more, and the coverages were, adequate and things like that. So last year was a lot of building house, and that was my goal. And that took a lot of mentors. It took a lot of people knowing a lot more about technology than I did, and relying on, our managed service provider and things like that for that. This year, my goals are kind of a lot more structured, growth plans. So this is our first time saying, okay, well, let's try to see if we can meet some of these goals, and how do we get there? How many people is it going to take to get there? And, what kind of support can we give our clients and our employees now? Can we, how do we maintain information on our website and things like that? So now we're kind of like, we want our brand to be important. So that's a little bit more kind of what we're looking at now. And so we have now we have a list of goals that we would like to try to meet. And some of them are kind of ride or die, and some of them are like nice to haves. So.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's really awesome. Wow, that's crazy. We're almost over the time, but I have another extra question is what for the audience that is listening to us in YouTube, and LinkedIn, and in Facebook, what would you say as your expertise as a leader that they need to focus on? At least two things that you feel like they need to focus on.
So I would say it really depends, but I would say focus on yourself and focus on your employees. Care about your employees as people. I know that I have seen business owners care more about money or trying to sell their business and make themselves money than the people that are there. And obviously when everyone knows the cycle, when your employees are happy, your clients are happy, or your customers are happy, and your employees are the front line of your business. So they need to represent you the way you want to be represented. And one of the definitely a lot of things that I've learned from sacrificing a lot to build this business while getting a PhD and staying married and having some kind of personal life. I would say don't sacrifice your health. Whatever you're building, if it's your career, your goals, yourself is something you definitely don't want to sacrifice. And for me, I was kind of saying I'm putting a lot of time and energy into my brain, and I want my body to be there when I get there. So when I first started my PhD, I went on a weight loss journey, and I lost 40 pounds my first year in my PhD program, and I've kept it off. But for me, it was just health and wellness. So obviously there's, programs out there available through HR. And that's actually exactly what I did. I joined a wellness program with United Healthcare, and shockingly enough, it worked. So kudos to United Healthcare. But I think a lot of it is, don't forget about your family. Don't sacrifice your relationships with your kids or your spouse for whatever it is you're trying to pursue. So obviously that, you don't want to get too focused on saying, well, I'm doing this for them. That's not the you they want to see. It's not your money that they want. They want time with their parents. So that's the kind of thing that I've seen a lot of parents say, well, I'm building them a life and giving them, I'm supporting them. But, quality time is something that I think everyone should take time for and not sacrifice that.
Wow, that's an amazing advice. Thank you, Michelle, for that. So the last tricky question. So if you had to write your own book, what will be the summary and the title of that book?
I don't know if I would know a title. Things I want to be known for. I am definitely looking forward to being called doctor. So that better be in there.
Yes, you will.
And I would love to be known for, my research and my contribution to, and what I look forward to contributing to I would say the business world. So I do most of the future that I'm looking forward to is being able to contribute research for that. So I would love the, kind of a summary of the book to include quite a bit of accomplishments that I've already made or intend to make with my research and with future research projects of working internationally, working with other professionals and other doctors that I do know that also do international research or industrial organizational psychology research. So that's mostly where my passion is kind of driving. And IO psychology is the research degree of the human capital in the workforce and how to make them efficient and happy in the workforce, and what's their drive and what's their why. And so I want companies and business owners to understand, and that's kind of what I meant by saying treat people as people, because those having people in the right places at the right time and the right career path and being a part of that, aligning their career path with the company's path is really important for those employees to stick around for a long time. If you just kind of take advantage of that, you know, then you're going to lose good people. And that's usually why, because you didn't listen to them and you didn't care about what their future was and make sure that you knew how to make their path important to the company and vice versa, and help them grow. So I would love to have those kind of contributions into the world.
That's beautiful. That sounds like a football team. That will be the title, because you know, in a football, they actually care about everyone has their own skills, they have their own mission, and they play together depending on what the outcome is. So it's really awesome how the football is, you know, like the box, you know, the race or any team that we actually follow right now. I don't know who's the team that you guys follow. Just type in the chat with you. We want to share your team, just share you all. But honestly, those sports is the example of how we need to care about our team and the outcomes that play together, the uses and language, the motivation, and the leadership, you know, is super important. So thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. Please make sure that if you have more questions, just remember, just comment below, ask questions. Michelle is gonna follow through. So how they can actually connect with you, if they want your service, they want anything, maybe a connect, maybe have a coffee or a virtual coffee with you.
Yeah, so you can find me, like my website is easy. It's griffin-resources.com. My cell phone number is right there on the website. But on LinkedIn, it is Michelle May Griffin. And so I'm pretty easy to find. My email address is michelle@griffin-resources.com. And my phone number is 813-728-6677.
Oh, be careful with that phone number.
It's everywhere. You can Google me and you'll find my phone number. You can Google my phone number and you'll find me. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, me too. Some people like feel like, why do you have your phone number called? You say, why not? You easy access.
Yeah. I think it's funny because it used to be the, you know, the white pages, or people used to have their address and name and phone number all listed in a book at the, you know, phone booth. So it's kind of like, it's going to be out there. So
Yellow pages, I remember. Yeah, that's great. Awesome, Michelle. So I appreciated your time today. Just make sure that if you have any questions, just please make sure that you are connecting with Michelle. She's an incredible human being and one of my excellent, awesome friends. So just make sure that you connect with her. There's so much growth that you can get from her just by just connecting, just that 5 minutes that will change your life forever. I know you, so I know it is. So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. So right now, I just want to let you know that I have a next event. It's going to be a challenge that is going to be in February 20. So if you have any questions on how to start the next challenge and how to maximize your influence, you're welcome to be here. And also to just click more details and I will get you signed up. So thank you, Michelle, for your help. And now I'll let you guys go. Happy Tuesday, happy whatever day it is, because maybe Monday, it will be Wednesday somewhere else in another part of the world, or maybe actually it's still in the back end, you know, some people in the future, in the present, but whatever you are, happy days. All right, thank you guys.